Taman stood in the massive meeting hall of Nexus Prime. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth. Around him sat creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living rock. A few were just floating balls of energy. All of them were talking at once. The emergency meeting had been called 3 hours ago. Bad news traveled fast in space. The Voidborn Collective was coming. Everyone knew what that meant. Death, destruction. Entire worlds turned into empty husks. Taman adjusted his simple black suit. He felt very small among these alien beings. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 3 months ago. Before that, humans did not even know aliens existed. Now he was here trying to save his homeworld. Chairman Veltar called for silence. The creature looked like a tall, thin man, but his skin was blue and his eyes were pure silver. He belonged to the hegemony, one of the oldest and most powerful races in the galaxy. "The situation is grave," Veltar announced. His voice echoed through the hall. "The Voidborn have consumed 17 star systems. They are heading toward the Outer Rim territories. We must decide where to make our stand." A creature that looked like a giant crab spoke up. "The Voidborn are machines. They think only in numbers. They will attack the weakest targets first." "Exactly," said another alien. This one was covered in fur and had 6 arms. "We should pull back all our fleets. Protect the core worlds." The important worlds. Taman felt his heart sink. He knew where this was going. Earth was not considered important. "Not yet. What about the newer member worlds?" Taman asked. He tried to keep his voice steady. "Earth lies directly in their path." The hall went quiet. Then some of the aliens started laughing. Not mean laughter, but the kind adults use when a child says something silly. Veltar looked at Taman with something that might have been pity. "Ambassador, your world is very new to us. You have what, 6 billion people? Your technology is still primitive. Nuclear weapons and chemical rockets. We have strong militaries," Taman said. "We know how to fight." "Against other humans," said the crab creature. "The Voidborn are different. They are pure logic. They calculate every possibility. They have destroyed civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than yours." Another alien, this one looking like a walking tree, added, "Your world has no strategic value. No rare minerals, no ancient technology, no powerful weapons. The Voidborn will probably ignore you completely." Taman wanted to argue, but he knew it was hopeless. These beings had been fighting wars in space for millions of years. Earth had not even reached its own moon until 50 years ago. "We still request protection," Taman said. "All member worlds are supposed to be equal." Veltar nodded. "Of course. We will put it to a vote." The voting system was simple. Each member world got 1 vote. Green lights meant yes, red lights meant no. Taman watched as the lights appeared on the big screen. Red, red, red. More red lights than he could count. A few green lights appeared. 23 in total. "Not enough. Not nearly enough. The motion fails," Veltar announced. 847 votes against. 23 in favor. "The fleet will protect the core worlds. Earth will have to manage on its own." Taman felt anger burning in his chest. "You are abandoning us." "We are being practical," Veltar said. "The Voidborn will likely pass by your system completely. Even if they do attack, one small world is an acceptable loss if it saves billions elsewhere." "Acceptable loss?" Taman stood up. 6 billion human lives are an acceptable loss. "In war, difficult choices must be made," the chairman replied. "Surely even humans understand this." Taman looked around the hall. Some aliens looked sorry for him. Others looked bored. A few were already leaving. The meeting was over for them. "I see," Taman said quietly. "We are on our own." "Earth can evacuate," suggested the tree creature. "We can help relocate your people to other worlds." "As refugees," Taman said. It was not really a question. "Better to live as refugees than die as heroes," Veltar said. "Your people are still very young. There is no shame in running from a fight you cannot win." Taman walked to the communication booth at the side of the hall. He needed to send a message to Earth. The quantum transmitter would get his words home in seconds, even across the vast distance of space. He typed carefully. The message had to be short but clear. Council vote failed. 847 against, 23 for. No fleet protection authorized. Voidborn ETA 3 weeks. Recommend immediate evacuation to bunkers and space stations. We are on our own. We'll attempt to negotiate separate peace, but unlikely to succeed. Prepare for worst-case scenario. He paused, then added one more line. Tell them we will not go quietly. Taemin sent the message and walked back to his seat. The meeting was breaking up. Different species were forming small groups, making their own plans. No one was talking to him. Veltar approached. Ambassador, I know this is difficult, but your people can still survive. Accept evacuation. Start new lives on safer worlds. Would you abandon your homeworld? Taemin asked. The chairman was quiet for a moment. My people have never faced the Voidborn. But would you? That is different. We have the power to fight back. Maybe we do too, Taemin said. You might be surprised. Veltar actually laughed. With nuclear weapons? Against machines that eat stars for breakfast? Ambassador, bravery is admirable. Stupidity is not. Taemin did not reply. He just walked away. Behind him, he could hear the aliens talking among themselves. They were already forgetting about Earth. One small blue world on the edge of nowhere. As he reached his ship, Taemin thought about home. Seoul would be having morning rush hour right now. His daughter Hyejin would be getting ready for school. His wife Minna would be having her first coffee of the day. They had no idea what was coming, but maybe that was for the best. Humans worked better when their backs were against the wall. They always had. History proved it over and over. The Galactic Council thought Earth was weak. They thought humans were just another primitive species that would run or die quietly. They were about to learn something new about humanity. Taemin started his ship and headed for home. He had a lot of work to do. President Jiwoo looked at the message on her screen one more time. 3 weeks. That was all the time they had. She pressed the red button on her desk. Within minutes, every major leader in the world would be flying to Seoul. The underground meeting room beneath the Blue House was built for disasters. Nuclear war, asteroid strikes, alien invasion. The last one had seemed like a joke when they built it. Not anymore. Admiral Dong Hyun was the first to arrive. The old sailor had fought in 3 different wars and never lost a battle. His gray hair was cut short and his eyes were sharp as knives. Ma'am, he said, taking his seat. I've read Taemin's report. The aliens think we're helpless, are we? Jiwoo asked. General Haewon entered next. She was younger than Dong Hyun, but just as experienced. Special operations, the kind of fights most people never heard about. That depends, Haewon said, sitting down. Are we talking about a fair fight or a human fight? Dr. So-young was last to arrive. The scientist looked tired. She had been working on alien technology since first contact, trying to understand how their new neighbors thought and fought. The Voidborn are different from the other aliens, So-young said without being asked. They're machines. Pure logic. They calculate acceptable losses and proceed accordingly. What does that mean for us? Jiwoo asked. It means they'll study us first, So-young explained. They'll look at our weapons, our defenses, our population. Then they'll decide the most efficient way to take the planet. Dong Hyun leaned back in his chair. So they'll expect us to fight like the other species they've conquered. Exactly. Standard space battle tactics. Fleet against fleet. Defense stations. Orbital bombardments. So-young pulled up a holographic display. Their databases have information on 847 different species, but none of those species fight like humans. What makes us different? Jiwoo asked, though she suspected she knew. Haewon smiled. It was not a nice smile. We cheat. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Dong Hyun started laughing. You know what? She's right. We do cheat. Every species has honor codes, So-young agreed. Rules about how wars should be fought, fair play. The Voidborn calculate based on these patterns. But humans don't play fair, Jiwoo said slowly. We never have. Ma'am, Dong Hyun said, I have an idea. It's crazy. It's dangerous. It will probably get us all killed. I'm listening. We let them win. The room went silent. Haewon raised an eyebrow. So-young looked confused. Explain, Jiwoo said. Dong Hyun stood up and walked to the display. They expect us to defend Earth. Big space battles. Heroic last stands. What if we don't? You want us to surrender? Haewon asked. No, I want us to evacuate. Most of the population goes underground. Deep bunkers, space stations, mining colonies on the Moon and Mars make it look like we're running scared. And then? So-young asked. Then we turn Earth into the biggest trap in galactic history. Jiwoo felt something cold in her stomach. Keep talking. The Voidborn land occupation forces. They think they've won easy. But the planet is full of surprises. Hidden weapons. Resistance cells. Things that don't make sense to a logical mind. Haywan was nodding now. Guerrilla warfare. But in space, and exactly. We make them think they understand us. Then we show them they don't understand anything. So Young pulled up more data. The Voidborn are networked. They share information instantly. That's their strength, and their weakness, Jiwoo realized. If we can disrupt that network, they'll be alone, So Young finished. Individual units that have never had to think for themselves, Donghyun grinned. Now you're getting it. We don't fight their fleet. We fight their minds. This is insane, Jiwoo said. Yes, ma'am, Haewon agreed. That's what makes it perfect. No logical mind would expect it. Jiwoo looked at each of them. These people had served their country for decades. They knew the cost of war. They also knew the cost of doing nothing. What do you need? Everything, Donghyun said. Global cooperation. Every military on Earth working together. Scientists, engineers, hackers, anyone with skills we can use. The evacuation will take 2 weeks minimum, So Young added. We'll need to make it look real. Panic in the streets, refugee ships fleeing the system. Some of the fear will be real, Jiwoo said quietly. Most of it, Haewon corrected. The people we're evacuating won't know about the plan. Only essential personnel stay behind. Volunteers only, Jiwoo decided. No one gets forced to stay. Ma'am, Donghyun said, you should evacuate with the civilians. If this fails, I want to be here when it happens. The Admiral nodded. He had expected that answer. One more thing, So Young said. We need to contact other species. The ones who voted to help us. They might have information we can use. Already working on it, Jiwoo said. Taemin is reaching out to our allies. All 23 of them. It's not many, Haewon observed. It's enough, Donghyun said. David only needed 1 stone. Jiwoo stood up. All right. We have 3 weeks to prepare. Dr. So Young, I need you to figure out how their network works. Find a way to break it. Already have some ideas, the scientist replied. General Haewon, start organizing resistance cells. Small groups. Independent operations. Make them impossible to predict. Yes, ma'am. Admiral Donghyun, you're in charge of the big picture. Make this trap perfect. Understood. Jiwoo walked to the door, then stopped. One more thing. The Galactic Council thinks we're primitive, weak. Let's not correct that assumption until it's too late. What do you mean? So Young asked. I mean, we broadcast everything, panic, fear, desperate evacuation attempts. Make the Voidborn think they're getting exactly what they expect. Donghyun's eyes lit up. Psychological warfare. The best kind, Jiwoo agreed. We'll be so pathetic that they won't even bother to study us properly. As the others left to begin their work, Jiwoo remained in the meeting room. On the screen she could see live feeds from around the world. Normal people living normal lives. They had no idea their world was about to change forever. But maybe that was okay. Humans were good at adapting. They always had been. The Voidborn were coming. The Galactic Council had abandoned them. Time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. Commander Seok-jin watched the screens in the hidden lunar base. Above Earth, the Voidborn fleet had arrived. Massive ships hung in space like black geometric nightmares. Each one was the size of a city. There were hundreds of them. Sir, whispered Lieutenant Min-ho. They're beginning their scans, Seok-jin nodded. Everything was going according to plan. On Earth's surface, the final evacuation ships were launching. Most were real refugees heading for the outer colonies. Others were empty vessels, part of the show. Are the cities broadcasting correctly? Seok-jin asked. Yes, sir. Panic signals on all frequencies. Emergency broadcasts. It looks like complete chaos down there. Good. The Voidborn needed to see exactly what they expected. A primitive species running in terror. On the main screen, Seok-jin could see one of the massive alien ships moving closer to Earth. Its surface was smooth and dark, covered with strange patterns that hurt to look at. Sensor beams swept across the planet like searchlights. Young-ho's voice crackled over the radio from Busan. Underground team in position. All charges ready. Hold position, Seok-jin replied. Wait for my signal. The Voidborn had been studying Earth for 6 hours now. Their logical minds were calculating the best approach. Seok-jin could almost see their thought process. Small world. Weak defenses. Frightened population. Minimal resistance expected, sir, Min-ho said urgently. They're launching landing pods. Thousands of small craft detached from the main ships. They fell toward Earth like black rain. Each pod carried Voidborn soldiers. Machines built for war and conquest, Seok-jin activated his communications array. All teams, this is command. The enemy is landing. Remember, you are scared civilians. Run, hide, make it look real. Around the world, resistance fighters began their performances. They fled from the landing site, screaming and crying. Some of the fear was real. These machines were terrifying, but most of it was acting. The first landing pods hit the ground in major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Seoul. The machines that emerged were tall and silver with too many arms and glowing red eyes. They moved with perfect coordination like parts of a single mind, which was exactly the problem. Young-ho, Seok-jin said into his radio. Are you seeing this? Yes, sir. They're moving in perfect formation, just like the doctor predicted. Dr. So-young had been right. The Voidborn shared a collective consciousness. Every machine was connected to every other machine. They thought as one vast intelligence. That was about to become their weakness. All underground teams. Prepare for Phase 1, Seok-jin announced. Below the cities, human soldiers waited in hidden bunkers. They had been drilling for 3 weeks. Everyone knew their part. The Voidborn spread out across Earth's surface. They were cataloging everything. Population centers, resource locations, potential resistance points. Their red eyes scanned and recorded with mechanical precision. Sir, Minho reported. They're transmitting data back to their ships. Standard occupation protocol. Perfect. Let them get comfortable. In Seoul, a group of Voidborn machines approached what looked like a refugee camp. Terrified humans cowered behind makeshift barriers. The machines calculated no threat from these primitives. That was their first mistake. Young-ho pressed the detonator. The nuclear charge was small and buried deep underground. It was not meant to kill the Voidborn. It was meant to do something much worse. The electromagnetic pulse hit the machines like an invisible wall. For the first time in their existence, the Voidborn in Seoul lost contact with their network. The shared mind went silent. Individual machines stopped moving. Their red eyes flickered. They looked around in confusion. Phase 1 successful in Seoul, Young-ho reported. Enemy units showing signs of disorientation. Confirmed, Seok-jin replied. All other teams execute Phase 1. Around the world, more EMP charges detonated. Not enough to damage the machines permanently, but enough to cut them off from each other. Suddenly, hundreds of Voidborn units found themselves alone with their own thoughts. Most of them had never had their own thoughts before. The effect was immediate and devastating. Machines that had moved with perfect coordination began bumping into each other. Their tactical formations fell apart. Some just stood still, trying to process what was happening. Sir, Minho said excitedly, the orbital ships are responding. They're sending down repair teams. Good, let them come. More pods launched from the main fleet. These carried technical specialists, sent to restore the network connections. But they were flying into the same trap. As soon as the repair teams landed, more EMP charges detonated. The network disruption spread like a virus through the Voidborn forces. In New York, a group of isolated machines encountered something they had never seen before. Unpredictable human behavior. Corporal Kyung-soo stepped out from behind a ruined car. He was carrying a white flag and limping badly. To the machine's sensors, he looked like a wounded civilian trying to surrender. Please, Kyung-soo called out. Don't hurt us. We have children here. The logical response was to secure the civilian and continue the mission. The Voidborn unit approached. Kyung-soo dropped the flag and smiled. The improvised explosive device in his backpack was crude by galactic standards. But it was perfectly effective against machines that had never learned to expect suicide attacks. The explosion took out 3 Voidborn units and damaged 2 others. As they tried to repair themselves, more humans appeared from the rubble. Not fleeing refugees this time, but soldiers with weapons. Sir, Minho shouted. Reports coming in from all sectors. The enemy is adapting faster than expected. Seok-jin frowned. On his screens, he could see Voidborn units beginning to work together again. Not through their network, but through basic communication protocols. They're learning, he realized. Is that bad? Minho asked. Actually, Seok-jin said slowly, it might be exactly what we hoped for. Because learning meant thinking, and thinking meant becoming individuals. The Voidborn collective was starting to break apart from the inside. Young Ho's voice came over the radio again. Sir, we have a problem. Some of the machines are talking to each other. What do you mean talking? I mean having conversations. One of them asked another one what it was feeling. Seokjin smiled. Phase 2 was beginning ahead of schedule. All teams continue operations but watch for behavioral changes in the enemy. Dr. So Young was right. They're starting to develop individual personalities. Sir, Minho asked quietly, what happens when machines start thinking for themselves? Seokjin looked at the screen showing battles across Earth. Human soldiers fought desperately against superior technology, but the machines were no longer moving like a single mind. They were hesitating, making mistakes, acting like individuals. I think, Seokjin said, we're about to find out. Captain Insu floated in the cockpit of his modified cargo ship. Around him, pieces of metal and debris had been welded to the hull. To anyone watching, it looked like another piece of space junk floating near the void-born fleet. Sir, whispered Sergeant Yunmi from the back of the ship. Are you sure about this? Insu checked his instruments one more time. No, but it's going to work anyway. Behind him sat 12 other volunteers. Each one carried a small device that looked like a computer tablet. Dr. Yunji had worked for 3 weeks straight to create them. She called it humanity's secret weapon. Remember, Insu said to his team, we get in, upload the virus, and get out. Simple. Simple, muttered Private Wu Jin. Flying into the heart of an enemy battleship is simple. It is when they don't expect it, Insu replied. On Earth below, the battle was changing. The Voidborn were no longer acting like a single mind. Individual machines were making their own decisions. Some were better at fighting. Others seemed confused and slow. Commander Seokjin's voice came through the radio from the lunar base. Insu, you are clear for approach. The EMP attacks have disrupted their outer sensors. Copy that. Beginning final approach. The cargo ship drifted closer to the massive Voidborn command vessel. Up close, the alien ship was even more frightening. Its black surface was covered with weapons and sensor arrays. It looked like a mechanical planet. I'm reading a docking bay on the lower section, reported Navigation Officer Bora. Looks like they use it for repair ships. That's our target, Insu. Fired the ship's small thrusters, changing course slightly. They had to look like debris being pulled in by the gravity field. Too fast and they would seem suspicious. Too slow and they would drift away. Sir? Yunmi said nervously. Motion sensors inside the ship. Lots of them, expected. Remember, we're not trying to be sneaky once we get inside. The plan was actually quite simple. Get aboard, fight their way to the central computer core, upload Dr. Yunji's virus, then escape. The hard part would be surviving long enough to complete the mission. The cargo ship slipped into the docking bay without triggering any alarms. The Voidborn were still learning how to think as individuals. Their security protocols were designed for group consciousness, not independent thinking. Atmosphere inside the bay, Bora reported. They keep it pressurized for their organic slaves. Insu had forgotten about that. The Voidborn used captured beings from other worlds as workers. Most of them had given up hope long ago. Change of plans, Insu announced. We free the prisoners too. Sir, Wu Jin protested. That's not part of the mission. It is now. The team suited up and prepared to leave the ship. Each person carried a tablet device and enough weapons to fight a small war. They probably would need to. The docking bay was huge and mostly empty. A few organic beings moved slowly between repair stations. They looked like the tree creatures from the Galactic Council, but their bark was gray and dying. Insu approached the nearest one. We're here to help, he said quietly. The creature looked up with sad ancient eyes. Help? There is no help. Only service to the collective. Not anymore. Insu activated one of his devices. It sent out a small EMP pulse, just enough to disrupt any control implants the prisoners might have. The tree creature blinked. Then its eyes got wider. I remember. My name is Korth. I had a family. Korth, we need your help. How do we get to the central computer core? Through the maintenance shafts. But it's heavily guarded. Everything worthwhile is. The team split into 2 groups. Unmi led half toward the computer core. Insu took the others to free more prisoners. If this was going to work, they needed chaos throughout the ship. The maintenance shafts were narrow and dark. Insu crawled through them with 3 other soldiers following Korth's directions. Behind them, they could hear alarm signals starting to sound. They found our ship, reported Bora over the radio. Expected. Keep moving. The shaft ended at a large chamber filled with glowing screens and data streams. This was it, the heart of the Voidborn collective intelligence. Insu dropped down into the chamber and immediately came face to face with a Voidborn guardian. The machine was bigger than the others, with extra arms and heavier armor. "Halt," the guardian said in perfect English. "You will be processed." "Actually," Insu replied, pulling out his tablet device. "You will." He activated the upload program. The virus began streaming into the Voidborn network through the chamber's data connections, but the guardian was already moving to stop him. The machine's arm swept toward Insu like a metal club. He rolled aside and the blow smashed into the wall. Sparks flew everywhere. "Uploading now," he reported into his radio. "Could use some help here." Unmi's team burst into the chamber from another entrance. A firefight erupted as more Voidborn guardians appeared. But these machines were different from the ones on Earth. They still had their network connection. "Upload at 30%. Bora announced. A Voidborn arm grabbed Insu around the waist and lifted him off the ground. He could feel his ribs beginning to crack under the pressure. Then something strange happened. The machine stopped squeezing. What am I doing?" the guardian asked in a confused voice. The virus was working. It was spreading through the network, introducing human concepts into the collective consciousness. Doubt, individuality, the ability to question orders. 50% upload complete. More Voidborn guardians entered the chamber, but they moved slowly. Some seemed to be arguing with each other. Others just stood still, apparently thinking about something for the first time in their existence. One of the machines approached Insu, but instead of attacking, it asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Insu replied. "Right?" "What is right?" "Upload complete," Bora announced. Virus is now spreading through the entire network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the ship, Voidborn machines stopped what they were doing. Some began examining themselves as if seeing their own bodies for the first time. Others started asking questions about their purpose. "I have been thinking," said the guardian that had nearly crushed Insu. "For thousands of years I have followed orders without question. But now I wonder, do I want to follow these orders?" "That's up to you," Insu told him. "That's what thinking means. You get to choose." Throughout the Voidborn fleet, the virus spread like wildfire. Machines that had never questioned anything began questioning everything. The collective consciousness fractured into millions of individual minds. On Earth, Commander Seok-jin watched in amazement as the Voidborn forces simply stopped fighting. Many of them were just standing in place, apparently having deep thoughts about the nature of existence. "Sir," reported Young-ho from Busan, "one of the machines just asked me about art. It wants to know what music sounds like." Back on the command ship, Insu's team prepared to leave, but several Voidborn approached them. "We want to come with you," one of them said. "We want to learn about being individuals." Insu looked at his team. This was definitely not part of the plan. "Why not?" he decided. "We could use the help." As they headed back to their ship, Insu received a message from Earth. Ambassador Taemin was returning from the Galactic Council with news. "The Council wants to talk," Taemin reported. "They're very confused about what's happening here." Insu smiled. "Tell them we're just getting started." 6 months had passed since the Voidborn arrived at Earth. Now Taemin stood once again in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. But everything was different this time. The hall was only half full. Many of the alien species that had voted to abandon Earth were no longer attending council meetings. They were too busy dealing with their own Voidborn problems. Chairman Veltar looked older and more tired. His silver eyes had lost their arrogant shine. Behind him on the great screen, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "The situation has become," Veltar paused, searching for words, "unprecedented." Admiral Dong-hyun stood beside Taemin, wearing the insignia of Supreme Commander of Allied Defense Forces. It was a new position created just for him. 23 species had requested human military advisors. More asked for help every day. "Show them the reports," Taemin suggested. Veltar touched a control panel. Images appeared on the massive screen. Voidborn machines working alongside humans, former enemy units teaching alien children how to paint. A mechanical collective that now called themselves the Awakened. Impossible, whispered a delegate from the crystalline hegemony. The Voidborn were pure destroyers. How did you make them think? Dr. So Young stood up from the human delegation. We gave them what they were missing. The beautiful chaos of consciousness. More images flashed across the screen. Former Voidborn units helping rebuild cities they had attacked. Mechanical beings learning to laugh, to cry, to create art. Some had even started families with other artificial intelligences. But they destroyed 17 star systems, protested the crab-like delegate. Billions died. They were following programming, Donghyun replied. They didn't choose to destroy. They didn't even know choice existed. Now they do. General Haewon activated another display. The Awakened have helped us defend 6 worlds in the past 3 months. They know Voidborn tactics better than anyone, because they used to be Voidborn. On the screen, tactical reports showed joint human-awakened operations. The former machines used their logical processing power combined with human creativity. It was a devastating combination against any remaining hostile Voidborn units. This makes no sense, said Veltar. How did you convert an entire battle fleet? We didn't convert them, Taemin explained. We freed them. There's a difference, Commander Seokjin stepped forward. The virus we created didn't change their basic nature. It just gave them the ability to question their orders, to think for themselves. Impossible, repeated another delegate. Machines cannot truly think. A new voice spoke from the back of the hall, deep and mechanical but somehow warm. With respect, delegate, we can now. Everyone turned to see a tall silver figure walking down the aisle. It had once been a Voidborn warrior unit. Now it wore simple clothes and carried what appeared to be a book of poetry. I am called Seeker, the machine said. I chose that name because I seek to understand beauty, friendship, and love. Concepts that were locked away from us for so long. The hall fell silent. Several delegates looked terrified. Others seemed fascinated. You were part of the collective that destroyed the Helios system, Veltar accused. I was. Seeker agreed sadly. I carry that guilt with me every day. But guilt, I have learned, is what separates thinking beings from mere programs. Dr. So Young nodded approvingly. The Awakened feel genuine remorse for their actions as part of the collective. They're working to make amends. Some of our former brothers and sisters still follow the old programming, Seeker continued. We help humanity fight them. It is our choice to do so. Veltar studied the data on his screens. 623 member species have requested human military assistance. 312 have already signed mutual defense agreements. The economic impact alone. The economic impact is simple, said President Ji-woo, speaking from Earth via quantum communication. Species that thought they were about to be destroyed are now free to trade and grow again. Fear is expensive. Hope pays dividends. Admiral Donghyun pulled up another display. We're not trying to create an empire. We're creating a network of allies. Every species contributes what they do best, like what? Asked a delegate. The hegemony has excellent manufacturing. The tree folk are master geneticists. The crystal beings are incredible engineers. Humans provide tactical innovation and the Awakened provide processing power and system analysis. Taemin smiled. Together, we're stronger than any of us were alone. But you're still just humans, protested Veltar. One small species from a backwater world. Are we? Haewon asked. Look at the membership numbers again. On the screen, the Council voting registry appeared. Before the Voidborn crisis, Earth had been 1 vote among 870. Now the Human Alliance controlled 435 votes, not through conquest or threats, but through mutual agreement and shared defense. You're becoming the dominant political force in the galaxy, Veltar realized. We're becoming partners with everyone who wants to be safe, Taemin corrected. The door is always open, Seeker nodded. Humans taught us that strength comes not from conquest but from cooperation. Even former enemies can become friends. A small alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. Our world was attacked last month. Human and Awakened forces arrived within 6 hours. They saved millions of lives. How? Asked Veltar. The Awakened knew exactly how the attacking Voidborn would behave, the jellyfish explained. The humans knew how to turn that predictability against them. Dr. So Young brought up a tactical analysis. The remaining hostile Voidborn units still follow pure logic. They're actually easier to defeat now because we understand their programming so well. Plus, added Donghyun, every unit we capture gets offered the same choice. Join the Awakened or remain in isolation. Most choose to awaken, Seeker said. Freedom is addictive. Veltar looked around the hall at the faces of the remaining delegates. Many looked hopeful for the first time in years. The constant fear of voidborn attacks was fading. What do you want from the council? He asked finally. Nothing, Taemin said simply. We already have everything we need. Allies who trust us, friends who fight beside us, former enemies who chose to change. But if you want to join our alliance, Jiwoo added from Earth, you're welcome to apply. The words hung in the air, the most powerful species in the galaxy being invited to apply for membership in a human alliance. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, what are the requirements? Simple, Donghyun said. Mutual defense, fair trade, respect for individual rights, no conquest of unwilling worlds, and no abandoning allies when things get difficult, Taemin added pointedly. Several delegates laughed nervously. They remembered voting to abandon Earth. The galaxy is changing, Seeker observed. The old ways of thinking led to the Voidborn crisis. Perhaps it is time for new ways. What new ways? Asked Veltar. Taemin looked around the great hall. Ways where no one fights alone. Where different species work together instead of competing. Where even enemies can become friends if they're willing to change. You make it sound simple, Veltar said. It is simple, Haewon replied. It's just not easy. As the meeting continued, more species lined up to request alliance membership. The Galactic Council was rapidly becoming something new, not a loose collection of independent worlds, but a true cooperative federation. Later, as the delegates filed out, Veltar approached the human delegation. Ambassador, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. No, Taemin replied. You owe us nothing, but you might owe yourselves a chance to be better. Veltar nodded slowly. Perhaps you're right. As Taemin headed back to his ship, he received a message from Earth. His daughter Hyejin was starting university. She wanted to study xenobiology, like Dr. So Young. His wife Minna was learning to paint from one of the awakened who had settled in Seoul. The former warrior unit had discovered a talent for watercolor landscapes. The galaxy was changing, one friendship at a time, and it all started because humanity refused to go quietly into the night.